are and where you're joining from. So let's use the chat, send in your name and where you join us from. Let's appreciate and acknowledge you. So a few of us who are joining from North Africa, welcome to you all. Southern Africa, Eastern Africa, Central Africa, Western Africa, you're all welcome. And we're coming to you live from the headquarters of the AAU in Accra, Ghana. My name is Ajaman Otrodako, and I'll be your moderator for today, taking you through the program for today and soft landing you safely through this event. I wouldn't want to mince words. We'd go straightly to today's event. We'll have opening remarks and some special presentations on this year's Africa University celebration. You know that earlier this year we met in Morocco to have the AU event, and most of you were there and you saw how amazing the AAU's works and efforts to advance higher education in Africa was, all to your service. And we'll move on to our special remarks that will be coming from the Secretary General of the Association of African Universities, Professor Olushola Bandele Oyewole. So Prof has a special message for all of you, our stakeholders within the higher education sector. And the AAU over the years has been working tirelessly to advance the course of higher education in Africa. And this year, in our week celebration, we seem to also deepen these feats for you all to appreciate. There's also interpretation ongoing, so you all benefit from that if you want to have the interpretation in French.
I am Professor Olushola Bandele Oyewole, the Secretary General of the Association of African Universities. I'm delivering this keynote address on the occasion of the 2025 Africa's University Day with the theme, The Future of Learning in Africa, Technology, Innovation, Skills, and Inclusive Growth. Your Excellencies, distinguished Vice Chancellors and University leaders, representatives of the African Union Commission, development partners, members of the private sector, our vibrant students and youth leaders, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you all, depending on where you are located. It is with profound gratitude and excitement that I welcome you to this year's celebration of Africa's University Day, an occasion that commemorates the founding of the Association of African Universities 58 years ago. On behalf of the AU Secretariat and our over 450 member institutions across 48 African countries, I extend warm greetings to you all as we reflect on the future of learning in Africa. This year's theme, The Future of Learning in Africa, Technology, Innovation, Skills, and Inclusive Growth, captures the spirit of transformation sweeping across our continent. It challenges us to reimagine higher education in the digital age and to ensure that no learner, no community, and no nation is left behind. Ladies and gentlemen, the world around us is changing faster than ever before. Artificial intelligence, automation, and the fourth industrial revolution are redefining work, governance, and human relationships. Africa, with its youthful population of over 400 million young people aged between 15 and 35, stands at a critical junction. We must therefore ask ourselves, what kind of learning systems will prepare African youths for the future of work? How can universities leverage technology and innovation to build inclusive, knowledge-driven economies? The future of learning is not merely about digital devices or online classrooms. It's about reimagining education as a driver of transformation, one that is relevant, inclusive, and sustainable. The future of learning demands that higher education institutions embrace the following. One is technology. Technology has become the new language of education. From artificial intelligence and big data analytics to virtual laboratories and learning management systems, technology is transforming how we teach, learn, research, and connect. During the COVID-19 pandemic, we witnessed universities across Africa accelerate the shift towards digital education. But while progress has been commendable, the digital divide remains a pressing challenge in Africa. Many of our institutions still face limited connectivity, inadequate infrastructure, and unequal access to devices. Therefore, our collective task is not only to adopt technology, but also to democratize access to it. The AU is working with partners to build the African Education and Research Digital Hub, a continental platform for resource sharing and collaboration. We are also expanding e-learning capacity building programs through our regional offices. In AU, we are promoting AI-driven education innovation that enhances learning outcomes and academic mobility. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe strongly that technology must be harnessed as a tool for inclusion, not exclusion. Number two, innovation. Innovation is the heartbeat of the future university. It is not limited to new gadgets or patents. It's about creating solutions that work for Africa. Our universities must evolve from being repositories of knowledge to laboratories of problem solving. Our professors must move beyond counting the number of publications in scientific journals to measure the real-world impact of their research work. The true worth of scholarship in Africa today should be defined not by citations, but by creations, by the number of innovations, technologies, and solutions that emerge from research to transform communities, industries, and livelihoods. We must build a culture where research moves from the laboratory to the marketplace, from the classroom to the community, and from theory to tangible outcomes that create jobs, enhance productivity, protect the environment, and solve Africa's pressing challenges. Professors should therefore be motivated and supported to engage in innovation-driven research, industry partnership, and technology transfer that translates knowledge into development. Africa's universities must become innovation hubs where ideas are incubated, prototypes are built, patents are registered, startups are launched, and society impact is measurable. Academic excellence should be redefined as knowledge that works, knowledge that changes lives. We must nurture a culture of innovation that connects research to industry and community needs, that encourages students' entrepreneurship and facilitates research commercialization. Across the continent, we see inspiring examples. Universities hosting innovation hubs and startup incubators. We are now seeing students using drones to monitor crops or design renewable energy systems. And we're also seeing researchers developing homegrown solutions to health, agriculture, and education challenges. As Professor Paul Zeleza once said, universities, and I quote, universities must be engines of innovation for sustainable development, unquote. That is the vision AU continues to champion through our innovation and research management platforms, linking academia with the private sector and policymakers. Number three is skills. Ladies and gentlemen, the Future of Job Report 2025 by the World Economic Forum reminds us that technological progress will both displace and create jobs. Skills such as critical thinking, problem solving, digital literacy, emotional intelligence, and adaptability are now the currency of employability. Unfortunately, Too many of our graduates leave university without the competencies demanded by modern economics. Our task is therefore to orientate curricula towards skills development, integrated TVET pathways, entrepreneurship education, and experiential learning. In this context, I wish to encourage all African universities to embrace the adoption and recognition of micro-credentials. Micro-credentials are short, focused courses or certification that verify the acquisition of specific skills and competencies, often aligned with industry needs and global standards. They are flexible, modular, and can be stacked toward full qualification. In today's fast-changing world of work, where new technologies and professions emerge rapidly, micro-credentials offer a practical bridge between traditional degrees and lifelong learning. By integrating micro-credentials into university programs, institutions can respond quickly to labor market demands and emerging industries. They can empower learners to continually upskill and reskill through their careers. They will help us to enhance collaboration between universities, employers, and professional bodies, and improve the employability and mobility of African graduates across borders. The Association of African Universities, in collaboration with the African Union and regional quality assurance agencies, is expanding continental frameworks to ensure the credibility, portability, and digital verification of micro-credentials. The universities that act early will position themselves as leaders in the new economy of skills and competencies shaping the future of learning in Africa. We must also strengthen academia-industry partnership, promote internships and apprenticeships, and invest in faculty reskilling so that our lecturers too can confidently prepare our students for a digital future. Number 4 is inclusive growth. True progress is measured not only by technological sophistication, but also by equity and inclusion. Africa's diversity of language, culture, gender, and geography must never become a barrier to education. Instead, it must be our source of strength. We must ensure that rural and marginalized communities have access to quality education. Women and girls should be empowered to lead in science and technology, and learning resources should be made available in multiple languages and modalities, including in our indigenous African languages. The AAU is working with partners to mainstream inclusive digital learning, support gender equity initiatives, and ensure that open and distance learning becomes a credible pathway for millions of learners across Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, the Association of African Universities is working with partners to mainstream inclusive digital learning, support gender equity initiatives, and ensure that open and distance learning becomes a credible pathway for millions of learners across Africa. Inclusive growth is not charity. It is smart economics. A continent cannot prosper when half of its population is excluded from opportunity. Ladies and gentlemen, universities must move beyond rhetorics to institutional transformation. This requires leadership commitment to innovation and reform, curriculum redesign to align with the fourth industrial revolution, collaborative networks for resource sharing and research partnership, and policy frameworks that enable digital transformation and academic freedom. Governments, on their part, must increase investment in higher education, pay our professors adequate salaries. They should also ensure strategic investment in the future of our continent. Development partners and the private sector must collaborate with universities to create ecosystem where innovation and skills can thrive. As the continental voice of African universities, the AU remains fully committed to driving this transformation. We will continue to strengthen our regional offices to support capacity development. We will continue to promote inter-university mobility through digital platforms. We will continue to facilitate research collaborations across linguistic and regional divides and advocate for policy coherence across the continent. Through initiatives such as the African Higher Education Observatory, research and educational networks, and the Continental Education Strategy for Africa, we aim to build the foundation for a truly integrated African educational space. Friends, the future of learning in Africa will not be defined by chance, but by our collective choices. We must embrace technologies as a bridge to inclusion. We must foster innovation that transforms societies. We must develop skills that empower the next generation and champion equity that ensures that no one is left behind. Let us also embrace flexible learning pathways, including micro-credentials that allow every African learner to grow, adapt, and contribute meaningfully to society. The African University Day is not just a celebration, it's a movement calling every university, every government, every partner, and every student to work together to shape the Africa that we want. Let me conclude with this reflection. The future of learning in Africa is not ahead of us, it's already here. The question is whether we are ready to lead it. If we invest in our people, embrace innovation, and unite around shared purposes, African universities will not only survive the future, they will define it. Let this African University Day rekindle our commitment to excellence, collaboration, and inclusive growth. Together, let us build universities that inspire hope, nurture innovation, and prepare generation of Africans to thrive in a rapidly changing world. Thank you. May God bless Africa and our universities.
Thank you very much, Professor Olushola Bandele Oyewole, for the very passionate speech. If you agree with him, please put your hands together, use your emojis to just give us the cheers, the clap and applause. You can note some very important things you mentioned about redefining the future of. Thank you very much. That's how you do it. Lovely. Redefine higher education in Africa with so much of skills, innovation, technology, very inevitable factors as we move on into within the fourth industrial revolution. And moving on is another, I would say, power-packed session that will be coming up. It will be a discussion that will be moderated by the Director for Research and Programs at the Association of African Universities. As we burst in applause, please put your hands together for Professor Frederick Atuama as he introduces his panel for this special session. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Ajiman, the president will come first. Check the list. Yeah.
Apologies. Let me just do this very important note. We are also joined by the vibrant and very energetic president of the AAU Governing Board and Vice Chancellor of the University of Namibia, Professor Kenneth Matengu. Prof, you're welcome.
Thank you very much. I hope you can all hear me.
Yes, Prof.
I wanted to share a PowerPoint, but I'm not sure. Maybe I don't have the permission to.
A minute. Please do well to assist Prof in the participant section. The name is Prof Kamwi Kenneth Matengu. Prof, now you are co-host. You can go ahead, sir.
Finding that in my It's not giving me the option to share. So perhaps I'll then just talk unless the colleagues there are able to do something.
Yes, bro. It will be quick. Prof, please, can you kindly try again?
Sorry?
You can go ahead and try again, sir.
Okay, let's hope it works now. No, it's not working, so maybe I just
All right, Prof, you can go ahead. I think that the team will be working behind the scenes to support back. You can go ahead, sir.
Okay, so good morning once again, fellow vice chancellors and all participants. I greet you also from Namibia. And what I'm gonna do is, what I was hoping to do is to consolidate what the SG has presented by asking a question. And really, my question today is, what is the contribution of higher education to economic growth and development? In other words, what could we do that will enable higher education to respond to the current challenges that the continent has? And by doing this, I think we need to be then looking at what is it that is required for higher education to be steered. But first, before we do that, I think it is important that we have a working definition of what higher education is. There are many definitions, of course, but the one that I like most is the one for the World Economic Forum, which defines higher education as stock of skills, competencies, and other productive enhancing characteristics. And is this a sufficient factor to cause development? What we know is that yes, it is. And it does so in three ways. Number one, higher education increases the collective ability of individuals to carry out productive tasks. Productive tasks means there is a defined problem that higher education in any country must address. And for that to happen, a country needs to be very clear on its philosophy, what that education is for in that particular country and on the continent, and what exactly is the philosophy behind it. Is it steering towards international competitiveness? Do we use higher education for self-reliance, or do we use higher education for the resilience and well-being of our citizens? But it's only if all of us are united in defining these agendas and the steering position of where we want to take our countries through education that we can get to the point where we have that collective ability to carry out productive tasks. The second thing is education facilitates the transfer of knowledge, information, products, and technologies that are created by others. And we have seen pockets of these very capable products and technologies and productive capacities that have been built. Let's say in financing, we've seen Nairobi taking lead in that. We have seen in energies, Algeria taking lead, and we have seen in different places where we are seeing much more these capabilities being built. And it is through education that we can achieve it. but also higher education helps countries to increase their own capacity to create new knowledge, products, and technologies. And this new knowledge should not be limited from what we learn from somewhere. It also requires that we embrace indigenous knowledge on the continent and take deliberate decisions to really invest in the development of the various forms of knowledge that we find on the continent and the solutions that this knowledge gives us so that it is relevant and responsive to our needs. So the question might be asked then, what level of education is needed for development to occur? What we know from statistics from World Bank and from the hard studies is that investments in secondary education, they boosts economy more than in primary education. But investments in higher education increases the quality of jobs and increases incomes. What we see for many countries, and I was hoping to show you a map, is that the majority of investments in many countries in education is in primary education. After that, there seems as there's increasing disinvestments, and those disinvestments means the investments in higher education are not leading to quality jobs and they are not increasing income, because having only primary education emphasis means many people are still working primarily in extractive industries, and their labor cannot function on automation and other things. Investments also should increase the quality, not mere increases in years of schooling. So school quality must be much more effective in closing cognitive skills. And this means we have to link skills to primary education and work them into the trade, ensuring that the universities are working closely with the private sector. And it must be coordinated in such a way that it's part of the overall development planning. If we do not do this, we will see that the majority of Africans still very much remain as workers, as laborers who are not earning enough, and therefore they stay in the low income gaps. And this is why those countries that were classified already in the 60s and 70s as less developed countries, they have stayed, they have stagnated, they are not moving, and because the investments are not causing this transition. And I believe higher education and as universities, we need to make this our challenge. We can't leave it only to governments, or that the performance in primary schools is our problem. We see that research productivity on the continent is still very, very low compared to the rest of the world. In terms of ranking, we are also not, we have improved, but not enough to compete with the knowledge production elsewhere. We know we do make contributions through the different partnerships and the diaspora, but still we have to get to a point where we are leaders. We see a high correlation of the well-educated workforce, and that correlation we see also in where the universities are, where the top-ranked universities are, is where the top economies are also. Meaning, if we are to develop the continent, we must continue to invest in universities. Like it is said, any country that decides to not invest in its higher education, it chooses underdevelopment. Because higher education is your tool. It is not just our weapon against poverty, but it's also our defense towards other things that are not desirable. The continent of Africa expects that 41% of the world's youth will be coming from Africa in the next 3 generations. And this is good because we will take lead, we'll have the workforce. The problem, however, is that the number of Africans in higher education compared to the rest of the world, it's still so tiny. Africans are still not participating in higher education enough. The Africans not in higher education compared to the rest of the world is a massive number, meaning that 41% that we expect to be on the continent as young people, as people under 35, the majority of them will still be not in universities, and that can create different kinds of problems. According to World Mapper, the size of industry workers in Africa compared to the rest of the world, it remains very tiny. Many of the African youth who are in employment are still in service-based sectors. They are not in industry, they are not in production of technologies or into high-level jobs. What is the reason for this? According to UNESCO and World Bank report of 2019, is that sub-Saharan Africa is experiencing what they are calling as learning poverty, which is a measure of the share of children who cannot do basic arithmetics, read and comprehend a simple text by the age of 10. And that percentage is around about 80%. Nearly 8 out of every 10-year-old who is in school is functionally illiterate. Meaning, we must also now be thinking as universities and advise our governments that the measure of school enrollment is not enough, because even though some countries we have 80-90% of children being in school, it doesn't mean they are learning. And that causes a much, much bigger challenge in the future. We do not know enough about this per country, but we have seen from the statistics that this trend is everywhere. Learning crisis is internationally recognized, and it has its highest impact on our continent. And as universities, we need to do something about it, because we still have the largest deposit of mineral resources, but we have not been able to develop the capacity to take lead and convert those resources into wealth. And it won't be done by somebody else, but us taking leadership and working closely with our governments, sharing best experiences, sharing laboratories, sharing human resources. And I believe that as AAU, we will be supporting those institutions that want to work together to make this happen. There are many, many other questions we can ask here, but what we know is the spending in higher education is not sufficient. It needs to be increased, and that's the advocacy we need to work. But as a university, let's not just wait for governments to bring in the resources. We must raise resources where we can. And I also want to say there are some policy options that we have. We must invest in skills. We have seen South Korea as a good case. They've invested a lot in skills programs that makes the difference. South Korea doesn't have minerals, doesn't have mines, but they are much, much, much better in terms of their skills capabilities, and therefore they are causing industry to emerge. Also, we must increase access, the proportion of adult population in post-secondary education, and focus and promote more entrepreneurship. We see this in the Nordic countries, Finland, Sweden. They are doing much more than that. That's why there's a growth of small and medium enterprises, because there's that route that we must create. This requires some flexibility, but very much introducing those skills of the future, the attributes that are required for the future of the work that the SG spoke about. We must provide high quality, technically oriented education. And here we have seen China and India taking lead. If you read the science report today that was issued recently, you will see that even the United States, it has increased, but it has not beaten China and India in terms of the percentage of the science production. And because of those investments they are making, and we are seeing them much more being capable of competing against the developed world much more intensely. So the school to work transition can be made easier, and we may have to make those adaptations to make sure that our universities are relevant and they are supporting the development objectives of the continent. And yes, we need to be serious about the credit transfers, the quality of our system, so that we stop pushing undereducated, underskilled youth into vulnerable jobs. The economic impact that education can have on inequality, on innovation and competitiveness will help us to move from stagnators of development to much more those that are progressive as a continent. So I believe, in conclusion, we need to share knowledge enough. We need to work on our research and innovation capabilities and infrastructure and ensure those are available. We must always extend hands to this is the challenge I think that African universities face, and we can solve it together if we take our tasks and our mandates seriously. Be assured, from a point of view of the board of the African Association of African Universities, we will support you. We will work to create those pathways and the transitions that are required for us to work together and achieve our objective. I wish you all the success and all the best for the Universities Africa Day. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. President, for your success speech. Please put your hands together. We wish we were there physically to meet you. We would have given you an ovation, a standing one. But since we're seeing on the virtual platform, I think the best of applause would suffice. And for your very, very key notes on how you can augment higher education in Africa from your perspective and also as a leader. Now we move on to the panel discussion for the day, which will be moderated by the Director for Research and Programs at the Association of African Universities, the person of Professor Frederick Atwalma. Prof, you're welcome.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ochodako. Yes, I want to seize the opportunity also to thank the Secretary General of the AAU, Professor Olushola Bandele Oyewole, for his talk. He mentioned inclusive growth, which is leaving no one behind. And then he also alluded to the fact that the future we talk about so dearly is now. And then to our distinguished president, Professor Matengo, who also mentioned the need for data-driven decision-making on the future of learning. And then he also mentioned learning poverty, which is something that we need to address in a systematic manner to ensure that we center stage the future of learning and inclusive growth now. Thank you so much, our distinguished speakers. We have a high-level panel that we are going to hold now on the theme, the future of learning in Africa, technology, innovation, skills, and inclusive growth. And to do us the honors, we have a distinguished cast of four, and I'm presenting them in no particular order. The first is Professor Labi Kerkep, Vice President of the AAU and former President of Ibn Tufail University in Morocco. The second panel speaker is Professor Wahab Olasupo Egbewole, Second Vice President of the AAU, and currently the Vice Chancellor of the University of Ilorin in Nigeria. The third distinguished speaker is Professor Roger Pepin Safak Namfuso. He is a board member of the AAU from Central Africa and currently the Vice Chancellor of the Shank University in Cameroon. And then finally, we have our distinguished lady panelist, Professor Teresa Nku Akenji, who is the Vice Chancellor of the University of Bamenda and is also currently the board chair of the Regional Universities Forum for Capacity Building in Africa, that is RUFORUM, which is a network of 175 universities from 40 African countries. So, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this panel session. Our discussion today moves beyond acknowledging the need for transformation in African higher education. We know our continent's prosperity depends on it. And the theme skills, innovation, and inclusive growth is our collective mandate. Our focus now must be on the how. How do we fundamentally redesign our curricula, pedagogies, and our very institutional models to produce the agile innovators and critical thinkers that Africa needs? How do we transition from being degree awarding institutions to becoming dynamic engines of inclusive growth and development? And this is something that the Secretary General alluded to in his presentation. Today, we are focusing on bringing out the key answers to some of these critical issues that we are raising. How do we build the systems, the policies, and the partnerships to make this future of learning a tangible reality in every African university? And indeed, our distinguished panel will share not just their vision, but practical strategies and concrete commitments to this urgent task. This panel discussion that is envisioned to last 45 minutes is segmented into 4 parts. The first part, we talk about the urgent imperative and the vision that should drive it. The goal is to have a shared understanding of the why and set a bold vision. So now I'm going to pose a question to all the panelists, and we will start with Professor Akenji, and then the gentlemen can follow in no particular order. The 2025 theme calls for a fundamental redesign of our universities. In your view, what is the single most compelling reason that makes this transformation non-negotiable for Africa's future? Is it the youth demographic, which our Secretary General and then our President alluded to respectively? The pace of technological change, or the imperative for inclusive growth? So this question goes to all the panelists, but we want to start with our distinguished lady panelist, Professor Akenji.
Good morning, everybody. I am honored to be part of this panel on a topic that is very dear to the education system as a whole. I'm not going to say just higher education, because even our president mentioned primary education. Let me try to address the question that Prof. Ama just asked. In my view, all 3 are important. That is compelling reasons: the youth demographic, the pace of technological change, and the imperative for inclusive growth. With about 625 million Africans expected to need digital skills by 2030, the current education system, according to the World Health Organization, is woefully unprepared to meet this demand. I'm sorry, the World Bank. The World Bank report highlights that sub-Saharan Africa stands on the brink of either seizing a once-in-a-generation opportunity to leap forward through digital skills, or falling deeper into inequality and exclusion if urgent reforms are not made. At the University of Bamenda, for example, we recognize this challenge. We have developed digital skills modules for all newly admitted students, and in the course of their studies, we train them on the use of various portals such as learning management systems. And I must say here that this practice began just before the COVID-19 pandemic. Why? Because the University of Bamenda is in a region of a socio-political crisis since 2016. And so there were many times that students and staff could not even go to campus because Bambili is out of town. And so we had to already devise digital skills to be able to teach our students. So digital involvement in knowledge has been at the University of Bamenda since before the pandemic of 2020. I must also say here that we offer data analytics training, for example, the R programming to postgraduate students throughout the year. And I think for now, that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Nkuwa-Kendi, for your insightful remarks. Thank you so much. Can we move on to Professor Labi Kerkeb? Professor Kerkeb.
Good morning or good afternoon, dear colleague, and happy Africa Universities Day. Thank you very much for this important question. Africa's young population, rapid technological change, and the need of inclusive growth are all important. But in my opinion, the key factor that makes university transformation unavoidable today is the need of technological change, especially the rise of artificial intelligence. This revolution fundamentally reshaped the mission of higher education. AI is no longer just a tool or technology. It's exposed our educational inequality. The digital divide is now also a cognitive divide, separating young people who can interact with intelligent systems from those who remain passive users. This directly challenges our responsibility as universities. We cannot speak of inclusivity while unequal access and unequal mastery of AI risk excluding many young Africans from tomorrow's economy. Inclusive growth is impossible if only a minority of students learn to think, create, and make decisions alongside intelligence machine. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Kerkeb. We are most grateful. You alluded to inclusive growth and elements that we need to consider so that we don't leave anyone behind. So this is very important for us as we scope inclusive growth and the future of learning. Can we move on to Professor Egbewole, please? Professor Egbewole. Professor Wahab Egbewole, please, are you online? Okay, please kindly unmute Professor Egbewole. He's muted.
Good afternoon from here. Hello, are you hearing me?
Yes, you're audible, sir. Thank you so much. You're audible.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be part of this conversation. I want to appreciate
your line is intermittent. It's intermittent.
For this opportunity. The issues that we're discussing. Hello?
Yes, you're audible
Hello?
now, sir.
Are you hearing me?
You're audible now, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. If we take the median age of the African population, it's put at 19.5 years, and 60% of Africans are under this 25 years.
Hello, Professor Egbewele. It appears your line is intermittent.
In order to move ahead, capture the future of education in Africa more. The appropriate
Yes, Professor Egbewele, your line is still intermittent, please. I entreat the technical team to assist Professor Egbewele. Maybe we should move on to Professor Namfuso. Let's move on to Professor Namfuso as the technical team assists Professor Egbewele to come back on stream. Professor Namfuso, please.
Okay, thank you very much and good morning. Are you hearing me?
Yes, you're audible, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay. I've heard the question, but I think that all these issues are critical for a transformation that is non-negotiable, but which will still be difficult in the short term. As you know, population growth is an important issue for the African continent, as statistics show that nearly 60% of the African population is under 35 years of age. So countries have sought to solve the problem by increasing the number of higher education institutions. For example, in Central Africa, there are now 1,752 institutions of this type across all sectors for nearly 1,005,000 students in Central Africa. In universities, this has led to overcrowded lectures halls and significant educational challenges that are being addressed through distance learning. As you have just heard the chairman of Reform say it before me, distance learning, MOOCs, multiple choice tests, etc. In Central Africa, inclusive growth also seems to me to be an essential imperative, given the importance of leaving no one behind, because knowledge is a public and universal good. But with higher education generally accounting for less than 2% of country's budget, implementation seems very complicated. On the other hand, the issues of technological change is critical because the gap with developed countries is significant due, among other things, to the energy deficit, the water deficit, and the scarcity of highly specialized human resources capable of impacting knowledge at the frontier. But if appropriate solutions to this transformation can be found, then African graduates in 2030 should be characterized, from my opinion, not by the diplomas or the number of the diplomas, but the ability to think, to identify, and to solve problems related to the environment in practical, very practical terms. We have tried to do it in my university in Chang, but I think we'll come back on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Namfuso, for this insightful presentation. And this would then launch us into the next question. In the interest of time, I would request that all distinguished panel members should devote just a minute to this question. So, if we are successful in this transformation that we desire, what does a future-ready African graduate look like? What does the future-ready African graduate look like? Beyond the technical skills, what core mindsets and attributes must they possess to be able to drive continental development? We'll start with Professor Kenji. Just 1 minute, please.
I will try. Thank you. Well, a future ready African graduate in 2030, and I keep saying, given the ideal conditions, should possess a combination of technical skills, core mindsets, and attributes that enable them to drive continental development. And some of these key attributes would include technological literacy, which is a strong foundation in digital skills, including programming, data analysis, and software development, analytical thinking, the ability to analyze complex problems, to think creatively, identify patterns, and make informed decisions so as to generate innovative solutions. Should be resilience, should show resilience, flexibility, and agility, the capacity to adapt to changing circumstances and navigate uncertainty. The graduate should have the ability to inspire, motivate, and empower others to achieve common goals. And there is also curiosity and lifelong learning, which is a commitment to ongoing learning, professional development, and staying up to date with the latest trends and technologies. And I also talk about emotional intelligence, which the Secretary General alluded to, which is the capacity to understand and manage one's emotion, as well as empathize and support others. And to achieve this transformation, African universities must prioritize, for instance, digital infrastructure development, ensuring reliable electricity, affordable internet, and modern laboratories, flexible and life learning modules, industry partnerships, inclusive education that is promoting access to quality education for all, regardless of background, location, or ability. And by focusing on these areas, Africa can unlock the potentials of its youth population, drive economic growth, and create a more prosperous future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Nkwa-Kenji. Fantastic point. Thank you so much. I've been alerted that Professor Egbewole is now back on stream. Professor Egbewole?
Yes, I am.
Yes, thank you so much. Please, you may proceed.
Yes, thank you so very much. When we talk about African ready graduates, we are looking at a graduate that is not only competent or certified in learning and character, but somebody that is capable, competent, compassionate, and ready to take responsibility. Such an African ready graduate must be adaptable to circumstances and changes. And of course, we must appreciate the fact that graduation is not an endpoint, but a launchpad to better and more challenging growth. If an African ready graduate is going to be packaged, he or she must be one that has the opportunity to change the narrative in terms of our situation, in terms of our goals, and in terms of our aspirations. For me, an African ready graduate for the future is one that will not only be a creator of jobs, but be an innovator that will eventually ensure a better African society. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Gbewele. Professor Gbewele talks about an African graduate that is responsible and alive to its responsibilities, and then adaptable, agile, and an innovator. That's fantastic. Thank you so much for your thoughts. Professor Labi Kerkeb, please.
Yes. About the graduate, I believe that future-ready African graduate in 2030 will be a technologically augmented individual, capable of collaborating intelligently with artificial systems, someone who not only use AI, but also understand it, question it, and get it ethically. Beyond the technical skills, this graduate will need to demonstrate critical thinking, adaptability, continuous learning, and the ability to innovate and solve complex problems rooted in African realities. They will need to work across discipline and with communities to co-create meaningful solutions while upholding the value of inclusion, responsibility, and sustainability.
Thank you so much, Professor Kerkeb. He talks about somebody who is technologically augmented, somebody that will use, understand, and even question AI. So that is how innovation is churned out, if we question the status quo. Thank you so much, Professor Kerkeb. Professor Namfuso, please, just a minute. Professor Namfuso. Please, can you unmute?
Yes. Yes. For me, if those people are graduates, as I said, we don't need nowadays graduates who are just be happy to have the diplomas, to have a graduate from this university or that university. What we need now in Africa is problem-solving agent. No matter how you have diploma, no matter if you are a PhD guy or a undergraduate guy, what we need nowadays, can we solve the problem around your environment? If you have skill to do that, that's the business of the new university. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Namfuso. Thank you so much, Professor Namfuso. So we are now transitioning from the first part, which looked at the urgent imperative and the vision. Our distinguished panel speakers have alluded to their vision. They mentioned the need for retooling and digital skills enhancement. They talk about coupling hard skills and soft skills, and alluded to broadly the 21st century competencies and skills that are required to drive change, not only in higher education, but across all the pipe chains of education. Now we want to move on to the second part, which would focus exclusively on the practical levels of change. And here we are looking at specific strategies we can implement to advance change. The concept note talks about a disconnect between the curricula and 21st century economy. So this is to Professor Labi Kerkeb. What concrete example of curriculum or pedagogical shift in your institution or broadly institutions within your context is championing to bridge this gap For instance, integrating AI literacy, climate smart agriculture, precision agriculture, or even for that matter, project-based learning across all disciplines. Professor Alabi Kirke, please.
Okay, to respond to this question, I would like to share a concrete experience that has already been implemented in my university and for which we are now presenting the result. This experience addresses a fundamental challenge: our ability as higher education institution to democratize access to artificial intelligence and to deeply transform our learning model so that our students are not only trained for technology, but they learn with technology in a genuine co-construction of knowledge between human and machine. In Morocco, this reflection is a part of national dynamic driven by the Moroccan Digital 2030 strategy, which place digital sovereignty and technological inclusion in the center of the country's development agenda. The underlying principle is clear: in the world ahead, mastery of artificial intelligence must no longer be a privilege of a technical elite. It must become shared competencies accessible to all students in all fields. To respond to this imperative, we establish in many universities, Moroccan universities, the Code 212 Center. It is a pedagogical innovation hub that has enabled us to experiment with a profound transformation on curricula and teaching practice. The Code 212 Center was born from a firm conviction: digital literacy and the understanding of artificial intelligence are essential cognitive rights. We therefore decide to make them accessible across all disciplines. The guiding principle is radically inclusive. Students in literature, law, economics, sociology, or biology need to understand artificial intelligence just as a student in computer science. To achieve this, we implemented a compulsory transversal model, named Coding and AI, built entirely on a learning by doing approach. Students learn not only how to manipulate generative AI tools, but also how to code, analyze data, create intelligent prototype, and integrate technology in their own learning process. This initiative has dismantled the traditional boundaries between technical and not technical fields. In the same room, philosophy students are designing advanced prompts, linguists are analyzing machine language patterns, law students are exploring algorithm regulation, and biology students are working with intelligence script to analyze field data. AI became a common language shared across disciplines. One of the most profound transformations observed at the Code 212 Center is the way students and machine learn to work together. The role of the teacher is no longer limited to the vertical transmission of knowledge. Instead, the instructor became a facilitator, a guide, a designer of learning path. Artificial intelligence became a cognitive partner. Students interact with the machine, question it, evaluate its answer, adjust their prompt, detect biases, and improve output. They learn to think with AI. Gradually, students develop a new posture, not one of dependence on digital tools, but one of critical, creative, and ethical mastery. This is a genuine paradigm shift. Knowledge is no longer simply transmitted, it is co-constructed. More than two-thirds of participants came from non-scientific background. Yet they were able to build solid technical foundation in a remarkably short time. Code 212 became a space where artificial intelligence does not divide discipline but connects them, where technology became an engine of cohesion and empowerment. For many students, AI is no longer perceived as a domain reserved for engineers. It became a universal language of the 21st century, a tool for intellectual freedom, creativity, and critical inquiry. The technology is no longer an obstacle. It became a catalyst for motivation and productivity. 70% of students believe the program increased their academic engagement, and the initiative recorded an exceptional 98% recommendation rate. What we are presenting today is not a pilot idea or theoretical model. It is real experience already implemented, documented, evaluated, and tested with hundreds of students. The Code 212 Center is now recognized as a Moroccan educational model that is ambitious, inclusive, and